disaster for small businesses. Denver heads back into tighter COVID-19 restrictions. Other counties are sure to follow. Colorado has lost the handle on the virus again. I'll have a word on how unfair this is to everyone who's listened to the science and played by the rules. Some Coloradans are returning home to find that it no longer stands. Yet these newlyweds tell us they have hope. The snow did not extinguish the fires. In some cases, it just gave them a cozy blanket. And you came through with $500,000. That's right, $500,000 for wildfire evacuees. More of your ballot questions, including whether Colorado was counting them up early. And I'm not saying that this is the best Halloween costume in the state, but I'll need you to show me a better one, because this is next. It's okay to be disappointed, but no one should be surprised. Denver is tightening restrictions as COVID-19 cases spike in the city. So that means reduced capacity at restaurants and churches, a 25-person limit on indoor events, 75 people at outdoor events. City leaders are pointing to case counts that are double what's allowed under state rules. Now, you know that we focus more on hospitalizations than cases, because cases that could be mild, asymptomatic. So we pressed the city on that today, whether they're over-reliant on that fuzzy metric.
I don't think so. If there was over-reliance on it, we would have been in level 3 many weeks ago, because we exceeded the 175 limit for level 2. So I think it's, there a lot of thought gone into this decision. I respect the decision. We're going to do everything we can to get down to that 175. And if hospitalizations decrease and positivity rate decreases, but case rates are still above 175, we're certainly going to have conversations with the state health department to see if there's flexibility with that 175 number, because other things are trending in the right direction.
You hear that dance between the city and the state, which ultimately makes the rules and kind of hands down this stuff to the city and county level. Hopefully there's nobody who is watching this program that believes that more testing creates more cases of COVID-19. It's a bit like saying that your house has more cockroaches if you turn the lights on. Here again is the head of Denver's health department on that bit of ridiculousness.
I hear this question over and over again. Isn't the positivity rate going up because you're doing more testing? And that is absolutely not accurate. The positivity rate is going up. The more testing that we would do, generally you would see the positivity rate go down, because we're testing more people who do not have the virus. But that is not what we're seeing.
Denver's not the only county to see changes today. Arapahoe County is moving to level 2 with some tightened restrictions there. So are Otero and Crowley counties. It was announced last week that Adams County would be moving to level 3, same as Denver. Democratic Governor Jared Polis said today that if hospitalization trends continue statewide, Colorado will exceed existing hospital capacity by year's end. Here is the hospitalization picture. 538 patients at last check. 40 have been discharged or transferred within the last 24 hours. A reminder, those folks are not necessarily out of the woods. They just don't need acute hospital care. The test positivity rate tells us whether the virus is spreading in the community. It is. Our current positivity rate is 7.23%. Weekly average is pulled up to 6.72%. Colorado was trying to keep that under 5%. And lastly, cases. The state counted more than 1,200 of them yesterday. 7-day average has us adding more than 1,400 cases per day. We've been adding more than 1,000 per day through most of October. As Denver and other counties go under tighter public health restrictions, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge how unfair this pandemic and its consequences have been for the Coloradans who have listened to the science and who have tried to keep us from getting to this point. Now, I'll let the public health experts and your uncle on Twitter debate the policy and which specific restrictions are needed. I just thought that we should acknowledge the unfairness of it all. It is unfair to the business owner who took every precaution to protect customers and staff. Unfair to all the houses of worship that found fellowship in safe ways. It's unfair to the families that sacrifice making memories by putting public health first. So many have given up so much to protect fellow Coloradans, and that really does represent most of our state. The anti-maskers get a lot of attention because they're angry and sometimes elected, but for most Coloradans who sacrificed in ways great and small to avoid the backslide that is happening now, I'm sorry. And this does not diminish what you did, what you're still doing to try and keep people safe. The East Troublesome fire is not out. The snow has it lying low, but it is not finished. Same for the Cameron Peak fire, which is now 64% contained. People living in areas where it burned are slowly being allowed to return home. Our Ryan Hare met a couple who found a powerful message in the ashes.
We got married on August 15th, a beautiful elopement type wedding.
Newlyweds Hillary and Josh Embry have had a year of great highs and tough lows.
It was a simple home. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was home. Like, there's nothing more home than what we had there.
The Cameron Peak fire drove the couple and their pups out of their home near Masonville. The peace and quiet, the towering trees were under attack.
And I just got this gut-wrenching feeling that we might not go home again.
Days later, they returned, confirming the reason for Hillary's gut feeling.
There was just nothing left.
The Cameron Peak fire took it all.
It was just really desolate, and the smoke smell was really strong, and it definitely felt like a war zone.
The intensity of this fire became immediately clear. It appeared the flames spared nothing, except for one glimmer of hope, buried in the ashes, the kind of thing that makes you realize not all is lost.
This little mug was fully intact and just under all the rubble. And I think that we both feel like that's a strong message of what's important, and to persevere with each other as a team through all of this and with our community.
It's easy to get caught up in the divisiveness of a year like 2020, but as tragedy often does, this community has been reminded of how similar we can be.
Everybody's dropping all the hate, and they're just gathering together regardless of what walk of life they come from. And I've seen it throughout our whole state. I've seen it personally within our community. We've been overly blessed.
Her home burned to the ground, and she says she's blessed thanks to neighbors who insist on working together and a marriage committed to forever.
To go through something like that together is definitely strengthening.
For Next, I'm Ryan Hare.
Hillary says if they can rebuild on that land, they will. And they love their bit of Colorado so much, they're planning to live in an RV on that property while the new home is put together. So we told you, send us ballot questions, and you had a slew. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger back now for round 2 of your most frequently asked election questions.
Do you have secrecy sleeves in Larimer County?
We do not. We have automation equipment that keeps us from having to have that.
So why isn't there a secrecy sleeve anymore?
It's a great question. We have equipment in Larimer County. I think I was the first one in the state to have this, where the ballots run through a piece of automation where the judges are simply plucking the content. They never see the exterior of the ballot envelope along with the content. And that's why there's no need to have a secrecy sleeve. There's no chance that the judges could relate that voted ballot to the person whose name is on the envelope.
We haven't had secrecy sleeves in Jeffco for the last 5 elections. Most of the metro counties have not either, for the simple reason that your ballot envelope is a security sleeve. It's security printed so no one can see your ballot through it, and it costs us a lot of money to put an extra insert in there. So we're trying to no longer duplicate those efforts and give you the secrecy sleeve while saving some taxpayer dollars.
How often are ballot boxes emptied?
At least daily. I can tell you that we empty our busiest ones at least 3 times a day because people are turning them in so fast right now.
If our teams who empty those ballot boxes see that they're very full, they will increase the number of times they go to visit those boxes to empty them, if there's any chance they might get over full.
They want to know what happens after the ballots are collected. Are the ballots opened and checked, or do they wait until Election Day? Are they put in machines and tallied, or not?
We process ballots as soon as they come into us. After we get those ballots back, our bipartisan teams are verifying the signatures. They're then removing the ballot from the ballot envelope, ensuring your anonymity. They're then sending those to be tabulated by our tabulation machines run by bipartisan election judges. Those machines are never connected to the internet. And then we have processed almost all ballots that have come into us by 7 p.m. on election night.
Important to point out the county clerks do not know any of the results before 7 p.m. on election day. They essentially collect all the data, and then they finally hit that enter button at 7 p.m. on election night on November 3rd, and then we know some of the results. A couple other specific ballot questions, Kyle. Paper ballots are kept for 2 years as a safe as a stopgap, but you'll never be able to connect a ballot to someone's specific name? And do you need to fill out every bubble? We've gotten that question a couple of times. No, you don't even have to fill out any bubble. If you just want credit for voting, you can sign your envelope, put a blank ballot back in there without filling anything out, and you'll have counted as voted that year.
Wait, you don't have to vote on anything?
Nothing. No.
Okay, but for real though. Okay, so we cover politics. I mean, we're talking politics all the time. I sat down with your explainers and my ballot, and there were like 2 or 3 things that I was legitimately so conflicted on. I thought about not voting them, or just feeling like it wasn't my thing necessarily. And there's no shame in that game, right? You can just totally leave something blank if you want.
Do you remember we covered this with the Denver clerk and recorder's race, that the undervote compared to how many people voted overall for like the mayor's race, there was an undervote for the clerk's race that had it so close that both Paul Lopez and Peg Pearl were spending those 8 days after the election trying to get people to fix their signature problems because it might have been enough to sway the election, but had people actually voted in that race that chose not to, that might have swayed the election.
But you voted everything on your ballot, didn't you?
48 bubbles I counted on the Denver ballot. So if you're in Denver and if I missed one, tell me. But 48, I did a double check. I think I filled it all.
Yeah, of course you'd fill out everything. All right, thank you, Marshall. So Marshall spent last month going through every statewide ballot issue together, and we know that there's a family next viewers that took it a step farther. Love this. Ruby in Longmont. She and her husband sat down with their 14-year-old to go through every single issue, even though Caleb's not going to be voting for years. He's real interested in social studies and how government and politics work. So they review each topic, and then they debate the pros and cons. They focus on how it's going to affect Caleb in the future. I'm not saying that Caleb's going to replace Marshall Zellinger someday, because Marshall's really good. Probably what's going to happen is Caleb will replace me. Firefighters are not about to unfurl a giant mission accomplished banner after snow fell on the northern Colorado fires, because we're going to look at the chances those big burns come back to life. And it's Halloween for everyone.
And so this just gives them an opportunity to sort of be what they want to be.
A feat of engineering went into this Coloradan's costume. Next.
Sunshine, blue skies, and plenty of snow. Off to a chilly start, but we've got a midweek warming trend that'll see us into the 60s by the weekend, and that includes Halloween. We still have a lot of snow and ice around the area. Temperatures this afternoon were milder. Yesterday's record low high at 16, today 43, tomorrow close to 50. Low pressure spinning to the south, and it's going to produce quite the ice storm across Oklahoma and Texas. As this low slips away and high pressure builds in, that means a warming and drying trend that'll carry us through the rest of this week. Fair skies and 18 tonight, so cold, but not as cold as last night. 49 with sunshine tomorrow, 50s for the midweek time period, and then 61 for Halloween. Don't forget this week. Well, on Sunday, this is when daylight saving time comes to an end. We fall back to standard time. We set those clocks back an hour on Saturday night.
Tonight's next question comes from both Derek and Dave. Both wanted to know if the recent snow put out the fires that are burning in the northern part of the state. Derek wrote, "I feel some of us naively thought it would resolve that issue." There is no shame in hoping, Derek, and the snow certainly helps. But if one snowstorm could put out the Cameron Peak fire, then one of the first 2 snowstorms on that fire would have done the job. But it's a stubborn beast. Somewhere between 6 inches and a foot of snow fell on the East Troublesome fire last couple of days. Cameron Peak fire area saw 1 to 2 feet. The snow helps put out the active flames and the spread, but the heat remains under there. The snow almost provides a sort of insulation. The heat gets trapped down beneath that. One single snowstorm typically does not contain enough water to fully extinguish a large fire. It would usually take multiple storms in quick succession. And that's why fire managers view the storms like the one that we saw on Sunday as a season-slowing, not a season-ending snowfall. Firefighters working the Cameron Peak fire spent most of Monday working around the fire line, looking for hot spots, as well as any points that are in good shape that they can use as an access point once the snow starts to melt. They're expecting 4 to 5 quiet days without fire activity, without it moving around. Then in will come the dry air and the wind, and then they'll be back to targeting hot spots again, hopefully far, far fewer. Firefighters really don't like it when we say fire season, because that suggests that it stops and starts. And fire is now nearly a year-round risk in Colorado. They tell us that April and May are the safest months, and that's because the vegetation is so wet.
As the wheels on this frame spin, the tentacles will move up and down.
It's not the homemade costume your mom made you in the 4th grade. Angie's going to be the biggest, baddest sea witch on the block because she got some help from future engineers. That's next. Halloween's going to look different this weekend because of the pandemic, but costumes are still happening, and Angie might have the best one.
Ready? I think they made you.
Colorado School of Mines, the Maker Society there, created a one-of-a-kind ode to the Little Mermaid. It's part of their annual Magic Wheelchair Halloween build. They told our photojournalist Corky Scholl, this is about making Halloween a holiday for everyone.
People get unwanted attention a lot when you're in a wheelchair or have a disability, and so this is some positive wanted attention. My name is Claire Thomas, and I go to the Colorado School of Mines.
My name is Bradley Jested, and I'm a mechanical engineering student at the Colorado School of Mines.
Magic Wheelchair is a nonprofit organization, and the goal of the organization is essentially to help kids and their families stand out for a good reason. And so we've been doing this the past, I guess this is our 3rd year. We're paired with a kiddo this year who wanted to be Ursula the Sea Witch.
A lot of painting went into it.
I think the original plan was sort of like brown painted planks.
We took a big drop cloth out on the back porch and spray painted all day pretty much for 2 days. Definitely a lot of fun and definitely rewarding doing it for a good purpose.
A lot of kids have like big dreams, right? They want to be a pirate or a princess or something fun like that when they're younger. And I think this sort of just embodies that dream. And so this just gives them an opportunity to sort of be what they want to be and stand out and have kids their age run up and come say hi to them, which doesn't always happen when you're in a wheelchair.
I know I definitely feel blessed to be able to use my gifts and talents in this sort of way, and I really, really hope that the family feels really blessed by this too.
The goal is to make the families feel happy and the kiddo feel happy and included. So if that occurs, that's our number one goal.
That thing is epic. It might not get as much use this year with the pandemic, so I hope that Angie's parents park Ursula in the garage and she can use it again next year. $500,000. That is no joke. And you did that. You raised $500,000 in less than a week to help Colorado's wildfire evacuees. A word about that and your feedback next. Hey, before we go, you raised $500,000 to help wildfire evacuees in Colorado. I thought you'd want to know that. Donations just kept pouring in for your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign that started last Wednesday, and this morning we watched it top $500,000. I don't even really know what to say other than just that, like, I'm proud to be associated with people who would do something like that. I mean, so I really do know some of you. I sort of know others of you, and I feel like I know all of you after a couple of years of doing this. And I don't know, I'm just grateful and proud to be connected with such wonderful people. George in Erie says he heard from somebody who did not vote because they thought that they had to vote every issue. George, reach back out to that person. Tell your friends you don't have to vote everything, just what you're confident on. See you next time.